What is happening, you guys? Welcome back to the Let's Go Win podcast. We are in for a big treat today. This young lady, I was on her show. She brings amazing energy. She's doing some incredible things in this world. Anne Mahlum is an American entrepreneur, motivational speaker, experienced CEO, business owner, philanthropist, and athlete. She is the founder and executive chairwoman of solidcore, one of the country's fastest growing boutique fitness companies, and is also the founder and former CEO of Back on My Feet, a national nonprofit organization that uses running as a vehicle to help those experiencing homelessness change the way they see themselves so they could change the direction of their lives. And you have been busy. How are you?
I'm good. I also see they forgot to put amateur in front of the word athlete. So people aren't confused.
Based on what you do, I would say I'm just going to throw athlete. I mean, amateur, professional. To me, you look like a professional.
Well, that's nice. Looks can be deceiving.
So I guess I'll start with, obviously, you've done a lot of amazing things, being a CEO and a philanthropist, motivational speaker. Where did this Anne come from? Where did this start? Kind of give me the backstory.
Yeah, I think my story, I think a lot of people can relate because the genesis, obviously our childhood, our upbringing, all of those things, but there was a period between the ages of like 24 to 26 where I felt completely lost. And I'm like, I know I'm supposed to do something big and special with my life. I sort of always had felt that. I just wish someone would tell me what it was. And, we feel stuck. We want meaning. We want fulfillment. We want joy, happiness. We want our life to make sense. Like we want to know why we're here. And I was in it deep for 2 years, JM. I just felt like I couldn't figure it out. I spent a lot of time by myself during that time. I wasn't going out doing sort of normal mid-20-year-old things. I was really committed to finding like what my purpose was supposed to be. And ironically, as these things usually happen, it was right in front of me the whole time. I had been running for 10 years at this point. And my place in Philadelphia, which was where I was living, was smack dab in the middle of like 4 homeless shelters. And on my morning run, I always passed this same homeless shelter. And I frankly also had to walk by it to and from work. And I never really paid much attention to the people that I saw because I didn't have a lot in common with them. And we all hear the stereotypes about people who are homeless. And then in June or May, I guess, I started to pay attention a little bit more. And these guys started to wave at me as I would run by the shelter at 5:30 in the morning. And then pretty soon we had this really fun rapport happening. And it was very comfortable for me to talk with them. And it was like this light bulb went off in my head of, why are you just running by these guys? Why don't you start a running club for them? And that moment, that idea, I can remember the day, I remember the sun, I remember the stoplight. It was like that idea really is what changed the trajectory of my life. And the lesson with that with folks is just like, anybody that's ever done anything great, it started with an idea. It starts with this thought in your head and you have to take action with it. Anybody that you admire, that respect, anything that exists today started with a single thought of what could be. And I think for myself, that moment, pushed my trajectory to always ask myself that question of when I have an idea, like, why don't I act on it? I'm capable of turning this into something. It doesn't just have to live in my head.
Yeah, it's a beautiful idea. The fact that we do create all of these things in our world from an idea. But I have to just, for a moment, when I'm picturing you running in Philadelphia and I'm picturing this idea and you're saying, hey, John and Bill and whatever their names were, let's start. Are they running with you? Because that's not my first thought when, a homeless population. I don't think, all right, we're going to get up and run. So tell me more of how you brought this together, because I'm not adding it up in my head yet,
Sure.
but I want to know.
Well, I also think our lives all have a story and they make sense. It's just up to us to put the puzzle pieces together. So my dad's an addict. I've never seen my dad drink or do drugs. He's been sober now for 37 years and he got sober when I was really young. So even though I knew that of my dad's history, it was nothing I really had experienced. But when I was a teenager, gambling became a real problem for my dad, and it tore apart my parents' marriage and just exposed me to a lot of the demons that my dad actually deals with addiction. And in order for me to cope with that, that's when I began running. I'm like, I got to get all of this energy out of me. And the metaphors that surround the sport of running, you learn that like life is all about one step at a time. And if you want to go and run 10 miles, you have to do all the work in between. You start to know that I have this hill in front of me and I've got a choice to make of if I'm going to climb the hill or I can go left or go right. I can look for the excuse not to do the work. So running had always made sense for me in that way. And so when I passed this homeless shelter and started to develop this rapport with these guys, one, I saw my dad. And I was never able to help my dad in the way that I wish I could have. I didn't understand addiction as a 16-year-old kid. I didn't know why he just couldn't quit. So I felt like I was being given and guided an opportunity here to like get a second chance at it and somehow vicariously or subconsciously help my dad through these guys. And so I'm like, I'm just going to call the homeless shelter and talk to the man in charge and see if he'll let me start a running club. And that was the first obstacle. He's like, I don't think that anybody here is going to want to run. And like, they have bigger problems. And I'm like, well, listen, if it can make them feel better about themselves, I sort of told him my story, my dad, I'll take care of everything. And he pretty much told me not to get my hopes up. He's like, I will ask and I will see if there's an interest, but don't again, get too excited about this. And then there were 9 guys who were like, yeah, that sounds great. We would like to do it. And so I went up and met the 9 guys. I got shoes donated. I brought them shoes, socks, shirts, shorts, everything they would need to get going. And JM, I kid you not, it's like in that moment of meeting these guys, like my life made sense. I felt like I had found my people that I had been looking for. And I'm like, I know what I'm supposed to do here. Like I just felt it and knew it. And then as the weeks progressed, you know, I had just taken this big job at Comcast and I was supposed to start my new job there. And in those weeks, I began to see that like, no, like this is the thing. Like, I can't go work at Comcast. Like, are you kidding me? Like, this is what I'm supposed to do with my life. And nobody understood. I tried to find some adult figure that would like bless me and be like, this is smart. This is the right thing to do. Everybody was concerned for my safety, my career, like, how am I going to pay my bills? All good questions. So it was just that moment where I really had to bet on myself. And I'm like, I see something here that I can turn this into fully fledged nonprofit with funding, with staff, with programming. And I was so bought into the idea that these individuals, the only way they were actually going to become not homeless was if we focused on their emotional and mental health first. And it was like, this is the only option. And if I can do that and then get them to see that they're capable of more, that they deserve more, and I can show employers that these guys know how to show up on time, that they're committed to change, that they want a better life for themselves, then we can place them in jobs. Then we can get them in more self-sufficient living. And that's what I ended up doing. And I like surrounded myself with smart people and we just went all in and learned and made mistakes and fixed those only to make more mistakes. And the organization still goes today. It's like an $8 million a year organization. We helped thousands of people so far move out of homeless shelters. And it really works. And frankly, JM, it's a lesson for us all that when we're trying to make real change in our life, it has to start within. We have to feel good about ourselves. We have to know that we are deserving, that we are capable, and that if we put our mind to it, that like we can achieve it, but it all has to start internally.
It is really a remarkable, I'm again, now I see this light where excuse me, my throat,
All good.
but I'm seeing don't judge a book by its cover, right?
Mm-hmm.
Clearly as stated before, we have this perception or this whatever about, homeless, when the truth is there's so many amazing stories and people, and whether they fell on hard times or whatever, it doesn't matter, but there's so many amazing stories. So don't judge a book by its cover. This idea of getting moving, just that and feeling good about themselves. This is really an interesting thought, and what an amazing thing to do, to say, you know what, no matter your situation, if we get you moving, start there, because now we're firing endorphins, things are going like, it's really what a amazing thing to do at such a young age, to create something and to see this radical change. Those are my thoughts. I don't know if there's a question in there, but it's certainly like, don't judge a book by its cover, get moving, and to hear these stories of people now moving from being homeless to whatever they've accomplished. I love that. Any thoughts on that, Anne? I know obviously you're in the physical space, but that idea of getting the body moving is so important.
Yeah, well, a couple of things. One, as I think about why Back on My Feet worked, there was a couple of things working in its favor. One, exactly as you said, whenever we were like, oh, there's a group of men and women who are homeless, running, people are like, wait, what? Like the people who are actually homeless are running? It like broke people's brains. So that initial, I need to see this for myself. I mean, the media frenzy was insane. They would come and talk to the guys. And to your point, they learned about Craig and Darren and Joe and Mike, and they wanted, and George and all the other guys, and they wanted to be like, how did you get here? And then this whole city of Philadelphia, it felt like, was rooting for these guys. They were the ultimate underdogs who were taking really bold steps to change their life, right? You think of somebody who's a runner, who's out running at 5:30 in the morning. You probably think of someone who is disciplined, ambitious, type A, focused, reliable, like all of these positive words. And when you say, oh, that person's homeless, you're like, but how can that be? So you get curious about what happened to them. And the majority of our members are dealing with addiction, right? And JM, they had really difficult upbringings, and not so, some of them had obviously parents and situation that wasn't great, but some of them didn't. Some of them had a single mom. And I'm thinking of my friend Mike, who unfortunately passed away last year, and his mom was a bus driver, and she had 3 boys and no father around, and they lived in a really poor neighborhood. And the opportunities that Mike saw for himself were very limited. He saw a lot of drug use around that neighborhood. He didn't see a lot of people graduating high school. And we easily forget that the opportunities that I have are based off a lot of what I saw around me. So anyway, that was one piece of it, where we completely changed the perception of homelessness and people who were going through it, because we exposed you to who they were and why they got there. And we humanized them, instead of you feeling so arm's length to who that individual is, or blaming them, or it's their fault, or what's wrong with them. You're a 50-year-old man, get your shit together, all of these things. We created empathy and sympathy. So that was one. And the second one of why it worked, think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You've got food and shelter on our bottom level pyramid, right? When those things are our needs, that's what we focus on. But once those are met, which these guys had those needs met, right? They were living in a shelter, wasn't great shelter, and it wasn't great food, but those needs were met. So then it's this desire to be loved, appreciated, noticed, cared for. And what Back on My Feet was doing was giving them that environment where every morning they woke up and they came outside, and there was a group of 20 volunteers excited to see them, rooting for them, running with them, stride by stride, not sitting across from them, serving a meal, sort of saying like, I'm serving you. It already has that hierarchy that can be uncomfortable. But when I'm running next to Craig and I got to do 8 miles and he's got to do 8 miles, we both are going to do it together, but we got to move our own legs and push through. It's just created this connectedness that I think they felt like, oh, no one's giving me sympathy here. We're doing the work together. So when you put people in an environment where they can be successful, it's amazing what can happen. And the number one reason, JM, why people quit their jobs is their boss is an asshole. The environment that they're working in, it's not so much the work, it's the environment that they're working in isn't respectful, supportive, encouraging, and positive. So it's really just a lesson on how important that is for success.
Yeah, it's I'm thinking of all the folks that I do see, unfortunately, that are homeless, and how am I going about helping them? This is a unique thing. It's brilliant, and I'm so proud of what you've done. I hope some of these states out there that are really getting hammered, this is a real solution. Hey, back on the feet. Let's get you moving. Let's get some positive, like you said, there's a great equalizer. We're running together. It doesn't matter what your story is. We are just compatriots in this one endeavor. It's really cool. I obviously movement is a huge part of your life, and with solidcore, with one of the fastest growing boutique fitness companies. What about fitness? Has it always just been a part of who you are? And as you're looking at that 25 to 27-year-old, is that where you finally were like, oh, I love being fit. I love being in this world of moving my body. Was it just, it was that? I'm trying to put the pieces together because clearly it's a foundation to who you are today.
Yeah. And my relationship with health, fitness, and my body has matured over the years. When I still, we talk about the memories and things that are formative for us. I hate that this is one of them for me, but it's true. When I was 12 years old, I was at a dance and I thought this boy was cute. And my friend went and asked if he would dance with me. And he said, oh, she's fat. And it's like, here is this. And I still remember that as a 42-year-old. Here's this stranger, this boy. And it's like, oh, my acceptance from men is based on how my body looks. And that propelled, as the majority of women out there, right? Body dysmorphia. I had stints and years of bulimia, constantly spending ridiculous amounts of energy and time on thinking about food. What can I eat? What can I not? When am I going to work out? How many times can I work out today? And fortunately, that's evolved into much more functionality, right? I'm proud of what my body can do for me. Whatever you're supposed to feel when you're 40, 42, who knows? But I feel no different than what I did in my 20s in regard to energy and how my body can move and performance. So that's why my commitment to health and fitness. And I think too, everybody says this, but you just never go move your body and then come back and be like, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that. The research is there, right? It produces dopamine. It produces the serotonin. You feel great. Your blood is flowing. Like, it just puts you in a positive mood. So it has all of these benefits of, yes, the way your body can look physically and keeping that functional for you, but also just the mental health aspect of it. So that's why I think I've stayed in this space, whether it's been back on my feet through, kind of using sport and running to help solve a social issue, to solidcore and discovering like, oh my God, I didn't know you could work out this way. And the confidence that I developed after going through that type of workout and then evolving that workout and creating our own machines. I just wanted people to feel as good as I did and get confident and start to love their body and start to, frankly, so many women, I'm sure you see this too, JM, just are so afraid of weight training and weights. And it's so crucial on so many levels. So to grow solidcore, we have over 90 studios now, and be able to give that gift to a lot of women who are now finally getting on board with strength training is really great. And I love the community building of wellness. And I've never been an at-home wellness person myself. I have zero interest in building an at-home brand, because you build community in person through connection, through emotion, through body language, through sweat, through toughness. And that's like the space that I want to continue to contribute in.
Yeah. And I've never been to solidcore, so I don't know. I'm curious because I do go to the gym and I see how sometimes it can be really uncomfortable for, I would imagine, I'm not female, so I don't know, but the gawking and the stopping and talking. And it's like, look, I want to be here to work out. Leave me the heck alone.
Mhm.
You know, and again, I can't know because I'm not a female, but I have to imagine having that safe space to say, look, come be in a place where you just get to embrace your body, work out to feel good, and not worry about all the stuff and the junk.
Mhm.
Is that a core principle of what you've really built in solidcore?
Yeah, I think there's, listen, when you're I love group fitness for one. So when you're in a group fitness setting, there's no pausing, there's no talking, there's no distractions, right? You have a coach who's there motivating you, telling what to do, and you're following along and pushing and giving direction. So that element of it takes out kind of the opportunity for those moments that you were addressing. But I just think, again, the way that the solid core workout and the brand that embodies it, our whole tagline is create the strongest version of yourself. And our most recent, branding campaign was like, this isn't for everybody. And we're not going to tell you it's for everybody. It's challenging. If you don't like to challenge yourself, you're not going to like this workout. If you don't like to sweat, if you don't like to work through discomfort, this probably isn't the place for you, because that's what our ethos are. And, you'll appreciate this too, JM, based off of who you are. But you ask 100 people, do you want to grow? And probably 100 would be like, yes. But the reality is they want the outcome of the growth, right? Sure, I want a better job, more money. I want to look fitter. I want to be fitter. But the work, right? The therapy you've got to do, the waking up at 5 a.m., the saying no to the alcohol, the whatever those things are, most people won't do that work. The growth is the discomfort. It is the process. And that's where we lose most people. So we just double down at that at solidcore of like, yeah, this doesn't feel really good right now. It's because you're literally ripping your muscle fibers, and you cannot get strength without causing strain on your muscles. And I see women do this all the time who go to the gym and they're like lifting, 5-pound weights. And I'm like, you could probably literally do that for 2 hours and you wouldn't get fatigued. And you need to cause stress and muscle failure and muscle fatigue in order for you to gain strength and muscle. So anyway, we created an environment that really pushes people to do that.
Yeah, and it's look at whether you're growing your mind, your body, you're not going to be comfortable. That's not the way it works. This is not groundbreaking. You're growing in discomfort. So when you say this isn't for everybody, like, hey, if you're ready to get uncomfortable, let's go. And you're right. It is so similar with my clients. Like, look, if you're ready to get uncomfortable, we can do this, but it's not going to be sunshine and rainbows. That's not the way it works. You're going to feel great, but there's going to be some muck and some shit that you're going to go through to get there.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the Choose 90 because I was on your program and I really like this idea and I love the name that you use. Can you talk about your podcast and the coaching program, what Choose 90 really stands for? Because I think the simplicity of what it stands for is brilliant. And I want people to know, hey, A, go check out your show because it's awesome. But B, here's what Choose 90 is all about.
Yeah. So the ethos of Choose 90 is like, you sort of sit and people are like, oh my God, how'd you become so successful? And why do you, you're in shape, you're this, you're that. You're like, when you break it down and think about it, it's decision making. And where I see the majority of people screw up is on both sides of the spectrum, JM. One, people go all in and it's like 100% of the time. And they do it right now because they think just like, that's the way that it has to get done. And so when you have one mistake, one mess up, even people who are doing, I'm not sure when this is airing, but if you're doing, or you did, dry January, which I hate for other reasons, I can talk about that. But it's like, if you mess up on January 10th and you have a drink, you're like, well, screw it. So now I'm not going to do it. Instead of being like, I messed up and I'm going to continue my commitment. At the end of the month, I ended up having one drink when normally during a month, I might have had X number of drinks. So you forget to celebrate that, like, that's actually a massive win and goal. You just throw all of your progress out with the mistake. And like, I see a lot of people fail there. Or on the other side, you see a lot of people who frankly allow for too much variability. And I'm talking about weekends. I'm great Monday through Thursday, man, but Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, it's a free for all. I can do whatever I want, eat whatever I want, drink whatever I want. That's 40% of your time. I don't know anybody who commits to something 60% of the time and sees the results and achievements that they're really looking for. So people get frustrated, and then it's like, then they end up, okay, well, it doesn't matter. So I'll do it on Wednesday. Like, this isn't working. So the 90% is really around make the right choices that are good for you today and tomorrow, 90% of the time, and have that 10% variability that you don't feel so restricted. And when you make a mistake, or you do something, or eat something, or spend a day watching Netflix, it's like, great, that was an aberrant behavior, and it's okay. I'm not going to beat myself up. It's part of my 10%. And like, tomorrow I'm back on my game. So that's the whole methodology behind it.
Yeah, and I have to ask, I'm assuming, because I laughed immediately when you talked about dry January, because it literally came up in a meeting I was in yesterday, and I visibly sighed. Like, look, I want people to do better for themselves. I'm all for that. And if it makes you a better person, fantastic.
Yeah.
Here's why dry January, or one of those concepts where you're just like, because I could feel it. And I have my own thoughts towards why it's a recipe for disaster, at least in my mind. But I'm curious, yours, being in that world, why that visible reaction when it comes to that?
Well, for one, so people know, I pretty much quit drinking in June this year. And I was somebody who drank frequently, but a small amount. I would have 1, 2, 5, 6 nights a week. And I was like, is this ever going to end? Like, if I don't get in front of this, at some point, do I not think I'm going to have some health issues or some adverse effects from this behavior? I'm fooling myself. I don't think so. So I tried 30 days, and I was like, cool, I'm just going to do this for 30 days to show that I don't have a problem. And I did it, and then right back into my old habits after that. So what dry January does in my brain, and why I think it's unsuccessful, January, after the holidays, people hibernate. You hibernate and you isolate, and you're like, I'm not drinking this month. So now you associate sobriety with hibernation, being alone, and not having fun. And so you don't go put yourself out in the social situations. You're already setting yourself up not to change your relationship with alcohol, right? It's like a checkboxing exercise to just do the whole prove to yourself, see, I don't have a problem with alcohol. I went 30 days without it. But if you really want to change your relationship with alcohol, like, I'm a big believer in 90 days, because you can't escape the social events for 90 days. It's somebody's birthday. You've got to be out at dinner. You've got to at a baseball game. You're maybe on a vacation, a bachelorette party, a wedding. And what alcohol does, JM, is it hijacks our prefrontal cortex, and also it lives in your hippocampus, right? So our memory lives there. So when you go to an event and your brain's like, hey, we have alcohol here, remember? You need to go to that event and not have alcohol to recreate the memories so that you don't crave it. It's where cravings come from. It's memories, it's nostalgia. And so it takes more of an effort. And I wanted that. I didn't want to prove to myself I didn't need alcohol. I wanted to stop drinking 5, 6 nights a week. And like, I needed to have so many of those moments. I needed to have the stressful day and not turn to alcohol. I needed to have something to celebrate and not turn to alcohol. And now I've not really drank since June. I've drank once. Since then, I don't have to worry about willpower anymore. I'm not like, oh, I really want to drink, but I can't have one because I'm doing this challenge. It's completely gone because I have so much time underneath my belt.
Yeah, it is interesting, the habits that are associated with so much of what we do, right? Like, oh, I hang out with Bill and we golf, therefore I drink.
Yeah.
And this is how our brains are wired. So everyone's clear what Anna's talking about. It's not your fault. All of us are wired this way. Like, we associate certain events and things with what we created these memories. So just when it comes to habits and creating, I like to call lifestyle, which is really what your program, in my opinion, is all about. Choose 90. This is a lifestyle. These are choices that you're making for you. And it's okay when you make this little error or you have a drink or whatever, because I don't like labels either. I'm not a huge fan of the label thing.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit more on habits, because this is clearly something that you are a professional in. You have great habits. You help teach others great routines and habits so that they can succeed. So what is your thought around how to create these things?
Yeah. So first things first, it's expectations. And we live in a world today where immediate gratification is at our fingertips for pretty much anything, right? Oh, you want to order food? It can be here in 20 minutes from Uber Eats, wherever you want, pretty much whatever food you want. Amazon, Instagram, it's just like constantly stimulation all the time. And so people highly underestimate how much time you actually need to feel and see results in something that you're trying to do. I'll give you an example. I have a friend who followed in my footsteps and quit drinking. He's like, I haven't drank in 45 days and I haven't lost a pound. I'm like, you've been drinking for 25 years. And like, you're frustrated that 45 days isn't giving you this like max result that you wanted. And JM, that's the case with anything, with building wealth, with success. It is a slow uphill build. So one, people's expectations are not in line with where they need to be for the progress that they want to feel. It takes months for some things and years for another thing. Like, I'm really proud of the wealth I built for myself. It's taken me 10 years. It's taken me 10 years. There was no quick fix. There was no lottery ticket. There was no whatever. It take consistent showing up every day to my companies, to my things I'm doing, and making the right decisions to put myself in this position. So same thing with any kind of change. One, it's going to feel hard in the beginning. You're going to want to drink. You're going to want sweets. You're going to want to skip the gym. It's so important in the first, again, I'm going to go back to the 90 days, that you stay committed and push through. It becomes easier. Like I also eat the same thing pretty much every day. I have a very limited amount of food that I have available to me. So I don't have to think about, what am I going to eat tonight? Ooh, like I want to have Chipotle. It's not an option for me, JM. Like, I can have my Greek yogurt bowl, which is dairy-free yogurt. I have eggs, avocado toast. I have my smoothie mix that I make. Like, there's like 5 or 6 things. And that's my variety, and that's all I need. And I now have months, I've been doing this for months now, of like, my body looks amazing. I feel incredible. I sleep like a baby. I fall asleep like literally within minutes of going into my bedroom. I sleep all through the night. I drink 100 ounces of water a day. Like, all of these things are reinforcement of like, it doesn't take work or effort for me to actually be like, I don't want to do this anymore. So don't underestimate the amount of time it takes. You're going to have to, and again, the willpower, you're going to have to practice in the beginning. I literally do not need willpower to go work out every day, to eat what I eat every day, to drink the water. Like, it just all is innate, and it's just on autopilot now.
Well, there's a lot to understand here. So a big part of why the willpower is not being tested as much is because she's setting her environment up to succeed. So we're right. Like Anne, you just said, I have 5 or 6 different really things that I can put together. I don't have Cheetos up here and a bottle of wine. Not drinking right now, or maybe ever. So I'm not going to have a bottle of wine in my house. That's right. Just because, look, we don't have willpower as human beings, or what we do have has a limited amount. And this is just facts. This is the way it works.
Yeah.
So if you set yourself up for failure, i.e. Cheetos, Doritos, Snicker bar, whiskey and wine, look, if you're trying not to eat junk food or not to drink, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Get it out of the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're spot on.
But it's so interesting to me that we don't look at it that way. I can be strong and I can be committed and I can be disciplined. Yes, but you have X amount. And by the way, you have so many other choices and decisions that you're making on a daily basis. Let's focus on this one and not make it so hard.
Well, and JM, that's why people talk about morning routines. It's not like the morning, yes, but your willpower diminishes throughout the day. Right. Which makes sense, right? You have energy, whether you've got kids or your job or this or that, you're having to put it into places. So that's why telling yourself you're going to go work out after you work, there's such a lower success rate than doing it first thing in the morning when, especially if you're starting a new routine, you're going to need that willpower. You're doing something, you're starting a habit routine that you haven't done before. Your brain doesn't, it's like, what are you doing? So we sleep right now. You push the snooze button, dude. Like, we want our sleep. All of those things you have to work against. But when you're not fighting against a depleted willpower or an energy system, or, other demands that just happen to come up throughout the day, right? Again, family, kids, work late, something, project, your boss, 6 a.m., 5 a.m., no one really needs you. Or again, I know some people have kids out there, but it's just the most opportune time to get the difficult work done.
Well, and it also feels freaking amazing. Like,
Yeah.
that's the thing. It is funny because, again, this is all habits. If you get in the habit of starting to, which is why, hitting the snooze over and over and over again, you're creating a habit, right? The whole choose 90, get up 90% of the time. Maybe that one day, maybe that Sunday you choose to sleep in. Cool.
Right.
6 out of the 7 days, get up and work out because it feels good, not just for your body, but for your brain. I could get on a soapbox on this one, but this is your living. This is what you're really good at. I just want people to hear it and be like, why do you want to work out in the morning? Because you feel freaking amazing. Your rest of your day is going to be so much better. And this is biology at play helping you.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm going to go back to expectations. Guys, don't quit when it feels hard. It's not you. As JM, you just said, our brains are hardwired to stay what we've been doing. Predictability, comfort, routine. We have this down. So when it feels hard, that's not a you thing. That's anybody who's going to try to do anything new. You're fighting against a dinosaur brain that got used to something you may have been doing for 20, 30, 10 years. So again, it feeling hard is part of the process. And again, I just find so many people quit because it's too hard. Well, what did you expect it to be? Like, once you buy into, yeah, this doesn't feel good, but I knew that was going to be the case, it sort of doesn't shock you as much.
Yeah. There's a topic that you have here that I want to explore, and we're running short on time, but I'd be remiss if we didn't talk about this. I'm taking you back to that 26, 27-year-old girl that chose this path and ends up being a CEO of this firm, right? And now an additional CEO of another firm. I think you're creating another brand. As a young woman, that this is not the common path. And I guess that's the question, is navigating being that successful entrepreneur as a female, especially that 26 or 27-year-old woman. That's pretty remarkable. And I want to go back to hear kind of where your thoughts went to say, I am powerful, I got this, because so often that's not how the traditional workspace is set up. But you've created that and clearly done it exceptionally well again and again. What are some of not only my female listeners, but all my listeners, what are some of those tips that you could give to say, hey, this is really going to help you navigate this space?
Yeah. So I'm actually probably going to give you an answer that unexpected. So by the time I was 26 living in Philly, I'm from North Dakota. So all of my immediate family still live there. Most of my friends from high school still live there. And so I left. I went to school in Minnesota. The summer before my senior year of college, I went to DC to intern for my US senator. I didn't know anybody there. It's a big, huge city. I didn't, I'm like, oh my God, all these houses are stuck together. What do you mean there's a train that goes underneath? So I went there. I'm like, wow, this is really great. I want to move here. I moved in with 3 people that I had never met before. My room was pretty much a closet. I had to figure out how to get myself from my place up to graduate school, get a job. Like, I put myself in all of these situations that were new and uncomfortable from the ages of 18 to 26. And then I moved from DC to Philly, also not knowing anybody. So by the time I had to make this decision, I had already made so many decisions that were uncertain and uncomfortable. So it's my biggest thing I tell people: think about your life over the last even year, 2 or 3. Does it look the same? If it looks the same, you're surrounding yourself with certainty and predictability. So the idea of you leaving your job and starting a business feels so massively overwhelming because you don't have any examples where you've proactively caused uncertainty in your life on smaller scales. You have to create uncertainty and unpredictability to train and show yourself that you can handle it and figure it out. So by the time I was 27, this idea of walking away from my first big corporate opportunity, like going to work at Comcast in the government, like Comcast is a massive company. It's headquartered in Philly. It was like the job to have. And it was like, I trust myself. I have empirical data that I have figured it out so many times. I can do this. And JM, I don't think I would have had that mindset or the self-confidence if I had been living in North Dakota and that was my first time of ever doing anything that felt uncomfortable to me. So it's those small things. Go have dinner by yourself without your phone. Go sit there and just like have people look at you, and in your mind, they're thinking, oh, you must not have any friends. You must not have a partner. Go through all of that bullshit. Like ask the person out who you've had a crush on, move cities, move in with yourself and have to relearn a community or figure those out. That will prepare you for when it's time to make the big move and it won't feel so scary.
It's brilliant. And it's my wife. If she's listening, she's going to laugh because I'm like, yeah, go to the movie alone. Why is that weird? It's like, it's just something you do.
Yeah.
But for so often, people, that is such a strange idea. When those self-doubts did creep in, because inevitably as an entrepreneur, they always do. Well, how do you combat that, Anne, or how have you traditionally and historically combated self-doubt, imposter syndrome, whatever insecurities that may have crept up? Do you have a process or a system to be like, get the hell out of here, I got this?
Yeah, it's pretty much that. It's the constant pep talk to myself. And I'm also damn smart enough to know what I'm not smart enough knowing. If I don't know the answer, like when I started solidcore, I had never had a for-profit business before. I did a 10-year lease on space. I had to do construction, learn all the nomenclature with like landlords of tenant improvement dollars and rent abatement and rent. I'm like, what does that mean? What's normal? What should I be asking for? And so I was just like constantly asking questions, and anybody that made me feel stupid for asking questions, I wouldn't work with them. It's like, I've never done this before. I know this piece, I know brand, I know community, I know how to do X, but like, in order for me to get to here, all these things have to get figured out. And I had to find people that I trusted that would coach me and teach me along the way, that again, wouldn't throw it in my face or take advantage, of me. So that was like a really important piece.
Yeah. You had mentioned that earlier. You surrounded yourself with, amazing people that are supporting your vision and building into that as well. And that's, I didn't hit on that point, but it is such an important part that anybody that's succeeded at any amount of level, they repeat that, right? Not you, it's all the human beings, the amazing people you surround yourself with.
Yeah. I mean, JM, I've raised 70 million in private equity. And I can remember being in those meetings being like, hang on, I don't know what that means. What does EBITDA mean? What is what is a preferred return? Like I would not sit in that room and pretend I knew things and agreed to things to make myself look smart when I'm like, this is damaging to me. If I don't, I'm the one who's selling the equity. I'm the one who's like, give me a scenario of like when that would make sense. How could this come back to bite me? So again, you frankly come across as confident when you are asking questions and saying, I don't know what that means. Please spell that out for me. Or like, I don't know what that acronym is. I think people respect that because you're okay sitting in your ignorance is the wrong word, but you're okay sitting in your uneducation of something and you're willing to learn and you're wanting to learn. And someone who's wanting to learn is like a dangerous weapon in my mind. Like you are setting yourself up to be the negotiator, to have the conversation, to arm yourself with the best information.
Well, actually, it's a brilliant tactic, by the way, whether you're in sales, whether you're in negotiating, you're slowing the process down by doing that. So whether you realize it at the time or not, Anne, it's a brilliant way to conduct yourself because you're making people really explain, hey, this is how this all works.
Yeah.
You're fascinating. I literally enjoyed the time flew by. Anne, if people wanted to reach out to you, connect with you online, learn more about solidcore, you as a speaker, all the amazing things that you've done, where's the best place for them to connect with you?
Yeah, I mean, one, you could just Google me and all that will come up, right? But I'm on Instagram. It's probably the social media medium that I am most active on. And yes, I have a new podcast, so you can Google Choose 90 on any place where you find podcasts. It actually launches January 17th. So yeah, and just my website that has every sort of link you might want to know about me.
That's awesome. Well, you're bundle full of knowledge and joy, and just I love talking to you, and thank you for coming by, spending the time. It was awesome.
Thanks, Sam. I really appreciate you having me today.
You guys, she unpacked a lot of amazing things, both from the physical aspect, the mental aspect, the business aspect. I mean, so many good nuggets, and I try not to use that word, but so many amazing nuggets in this episode. Re-listen to it, share it out. Everyone can benefit from hearing what Anne had to say today. Remember, until next time, your mindset matters. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for listening. If this content is delivering value to you, please make sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps us build this community, and that is what we are all about. Building this community as big as we can, helping as many people as we can, and deliver as much value as possible. Be sure to head over to letsgowinpodcast.com for information on my coaching courses, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Let's Go Win 365. Let's go win and transcend in life.
This is the Let's Go Win podcast with your host, J.M. Ryerson.